quorum now, so let's call this meeting to order. Dee, can you take the roll, please? Can't hear you, Dee.
Lee Sandwise,
Present here.
Chris Sturbaum,
Here.
John Saunders, Doug Bruce, Sam DeSaller,
Here.
Elizabeth Mitchell, Matt Seddon,
Here.
Bernard Cross, Jeff Golden.
Here. And Dee, John
Duncan.
just showed up.
John, okay. Duncan Campbell,
Here.
Derek Ritchie, Jenny Southern.
Here.
Great, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda. It's approval of the minutes. Hopefully you've reviewed them, and I'm entertaining a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Lee Sandwise,
Wait, can we hang on a second? Can we have some discussion?
Yeah, go ahead.
I did email this, were the minutes corrected because they had me down as non-voting on the beginning and then they had all my votes in the middle. And so I thought that probably ought to be corrected.
that was
All right.
corrected.
That was corrected? Never mind. Continue with the
Yeah,
vote.
it's on there.
Okay, thank you.
You're official, Matt.
Never mind.
Okay, go ahead, Dee.
Okay, Lee, you abstained?
Yes.
Okay. Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
Okay, let's move on to COAs. We're gonna go with COA 21-28.
Okay. Just a moment. Is everybody same on John Saunders seems to be hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah, John, you're upside down.
We just
Okay,
thought he was on the Jeff Bezos flight.
Okay, there you are.
He was
Good.
floating.
I did this thanks to, I just copy pasted whatever.
So we've seen this COA before.
It's different, so they amended it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, hello everybody, I'm Gloria Colon, the new Historic Preservation Program Manager, in case you haven't been able to meet me digitally or in person. This is going to be the first COA I present here ever. It's the COA 21-28, and it is a resubmittal at 360 North Washington Street for the placement of a sign on the front facade. The petitioner is Granite Management, and the sign is for the Granite Management logo sign. So the staff comments that this is based on historic guidelines. In this particular case of the Secretary of the Interior, that signs should be viewed as part of an overall graphic systems for the building. So basically the sign has to work with the building rather than against it. And the sign placement is also very, very important. New signs should not obscure significant features of the historic building. So although this is the first time that I am evaluating this particular case, it is my understanding that it was before it was on the stone itself. Now the proposed amendment or the proposed changes to put it on the not on the stone to the paneled section, but we're not really recommending it as it is right now, mainly because even though it's not on the stone, on the masonry, it still does not complement the historic nature of the building. However, our purpose is not to disincentivize work. There's still, I do believe that there was some research being done in the last meeting about the legality of the sign. That is not my purview. I believe that's something that planning and other offices would deal with, the actual legality. What I'm concentrated is rather on the placement and how it relates to the building and to the historic architecture. This is a notable building. It is a historic designated structure. So there is more care should be taken and needs to be taken with this type of structure. So here are just some ideas of precedents, existing examples in the world of other ways where signs are modified. The logo can be modified either through material change, through placement change. That could be much more acceptable with regards to the building. So this is basically, summary of the case.
Great. So we have a representative from the petitioner.
Yeah, hi, this is John Raybold. I don't have any additional comments to that. I did send over to Brent an alteration of that sign. It's more of a number and a URL. It's a removal of our logo, but I have a feeling that doesn't really change anything. But it is same location, same size.
Great, thanks, John. Okay, Commissioner questions. John?
No questions.
Sam?
I guess my question is, in reading the packet, I'm unclear as to this, if this is just a presentation or if the sign has actually been physically moved.
Yeah, I can answer. Yeah. So we if you recall from the first meeting, I was not aware of the historic ordinance and its relation to this building. So we had already installed some signs. I have since taken those down and kept the one number sign up on the siding portion, but that was just based on a contingency to wait and see what the result was from this meeting. And if it was decided that we needed to take it down, I'm just gonna have my staff do that as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yes, did you consider a ground sign? That was part of the discussion last meeting.
Well, I think when we talked last meeting, somebody had mentioned, one of those small yard signs. And I think, that is something we can consider. I mean, from our experience, those are quick to be picked up and or vandalized, which, is commonplace, something that's not permanent, something more of a
permanent one like was shown in the previous.
Yeah, we can consider that. I know the property owner is considering something that is more indicative of naming the property. Ours is more from the standpoint of advertisement to make sure that there's a call to action. People know who to call if they're interested in renting that from that property. So I would hate to do something that's physical in the ground that has our name on it in case the property changes hands. But I do know that the property owner has discussed something that's more, rustic, kind of looks like some of the examples shown in the slide previous. So I'm assuming if that comes to fruition, we'll be back here to discuss that. But as it relates to Granite's name on that, my suggestion would be to hold off.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, you mentioned you had sent over a different version of the logo, so I'm mildly confused as to what we are asked to consider. Is it the logo with the banana or another logo? What are we considering?
Yeah, I sent I don't know if they have it there currently. I sent pretty much the same picture there with the actual sign up. I actually took the banana sign down because I was under the impression that was not something that was accepted. And although I wasn't 100% confident whether the URL and phone number sign would be accepted, I figured it was going to be considered more favorable. So it's essentially the same size. I don't know if they can pull up that picture that I sent yesterday with the adjustment, but it's essentially a rectangular white sign that has the Granite URL and an 812 phone number.
We're trying to get it right now.
I can forward it to Gloria right now. I can pull it up on your email.
Give me 1 second. I need to.
While we're waiting for that, let's move on to the next. Are you done, Matt, other than that? Okay, Jenny, any questions?
No, I was just going to refer him to the examples that Gloria had put up, page of examples.
Great. Duncan, anything to add? Any questions, I mean?
I'm a little confused about, there seem to be two parties, an owner and what is Granite, a rental agency?
Yeah, sorry, I should clarify. We're just exclusively a third-party property management company. So the owner owns the property, but we're the agent for the owner, essentially.
So something you said made me think that the owner is also considering signage or was looking for something more traditional or.
Yeah, in a recent meeting with them, he had discussed, because he owns other properties in town through a group, and had expressed interest in a kind of a cohesive sign that would go on each property with the property's branded name. That's more permanent, something that's, rustic, a little more permanent, maybe something along the lines of those examples that we saw. Ours is more, as you can tell by nature of that picture, more of the call to action, so that somebody knows, exactly where to go if they were interested in the property, because oftentimes it can be difficult otherwise. But I would have, from the mock-ups of the signage I've seen from his sign vendor, it would be something pretty attractive for the property. But it wouldn't be a call out to leasing. It would just be almost like an indication of the name of the property.
Well, the reason I ask is I'm not sure why we would be approving this one without being able to see the other one. If we're looking at an overall graphic design issue, as Gloria pointed out, it seems like we'd want to consider the whole thing as one C of A and not have them come in separately for separate approvals. Well,
and I can elaborate on that a little bit. The topic of signage from the owner's perspective didn't come up until this past week. And I'm, in all honesty, not 100% sure whether it's of course, we're going to keep it up, assuming it was approved, but ours can easily be removed. And it's more so just that call to action. His, if it was approved, would be more something that stays with the building, forever, whether Granite's involved or not. But that's really all I know of it as of right now. I don't know if it'll go any further, to be honest with you.
Okay, I stand by my statement.
Great. Thanks, Duncan. All right, any questions from the public? Commissioner comments? John?
No, thank you. Yeah,
No
sorry.
comment.
John Saunders, do you have anything?
No comments, Jeff.
Okay, Sam?
Couple of comments. My understanding at the end of the last meeting was that the petitioner was going to remove the existing signs and come back to us with a proposal for a new sign, and not move the sign and put it into another place on the notable historic structure. So I'm a little disturbed by that forwardness. That said, I would sort of concur with the petitioner's indication that we're not going to smile on either sign. I think both of them are inappropriate for a notable structure. And if the owner is considering putting in a ground-based sign, and he might want to, or they might want to incorporate a spot for their current management company, that can be, less permanent if that's a consideration. But I think this property is much better off without any signage.
Chris?
I agree with Sam.
Matt?
Yeah, I agree that even the second sign, the materials, the font, the colors seem very out of character with the rest of the structure and its historical style. And I also think it's extraordinarily irregular to put a sign on and then ask for approval to have the sign be put on. I think I would assume our normal process would be to ask permission to put on the sign, then put the sign on when you have it.
Jenny?
I think planning also has a limit on the amount of signage allowed on a building, or signage in the front yard even, for advertising. Not sure that what you have up there looks a little large for that. It's, for a historic district, it's really inappropriate to have, I don't know, advertising on a building like that. So like, I agree that it's, I'd rather see it on a separate sign in the yard that could be changed maybe. And something a little more residential. This is a residential street. It's not Kirkwood. So I'd like to see something a little more appropriate. Thanks.
Duncan, anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Any comments from the public? I'm entertaining a motion regarding the COA.
I'll move to
Move
deny.
to-
So we have Sam moving to deny. Do we have a second?
Second,
That's Matt. Dee?
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
yes.
Yes.
motion,
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's move on to COA 21-29.
Okay, so COA 21-29 is for small sorry, not small, but the removal and replacement of, hold up, no, I am mixing it up. Yes, removal of jut out, sort of an extension of the house in the back, and the filling in and stabilizing of an below ground cistern. And then to rebuild an addition, a small addition to the house. This is all back facing. None of this is visible from the street. So I used the historic district's manual and used that to guide. So new structure accessories to primary building should be visually compatible. And the new structures, when possible, should be placed either subordinate and there's this idea of it being not competing with the original structure. So this is not a staff action. I don't know why I actually changed it to a staff recommendation. So please do not let yourself be guided by what is on the PowerPoint. This is just a recommendation, but we do recommend it to be approved with no comments. So this is where everything is taking place, where the red arrow is located. So that small jutting out structure would be replaced. Here is another image of the jutting out underneath the wooden planks. We have there's a cistern currently. So here are the plans. The part that is grayed out and hatched out is the existing structure, and the addition is the smaller structure behind that is has the red arrows. So yeah, that's basically it for that one.
Okay, before we move on, I'm going to recuse myself from this particular one. I'm in the process of writing an appraisal for this new addition, but I'll go ahead and run the meeting. So petitioners, do you have anything to add? Are you here?
No comment.
Oh, hold on, John. I'm looking for the petitioners.
Sorry, just that all of this was brought about when we discovered, as mentioned, the cistern under the back portion of the property, which is causing part of our house to sink into the ground. So hoping to fix that, fix the foundation damage that has occurred, and then when we rebuild, just slightly expand.
Great, thank you. So Commissioner questions, John?
No questions.
Sam?
This is Greater Prospect Hill, so they don't have a committee, right?
Oh, there is a committee,
And did we hear anything from the committee?
not that I know of. But we're in transition still, so some of that is not happening yet. So any questions, Sam?
Oh, no, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, could we see the drawings of the rear addition again, please?
Of course.
You want to see the floor plan or the,
No, I think that's right. That's what I wanted to see.
okay,
And I don't have any problem with that. I just wanted to review it again. That roof join looks a little tricky, but was that to keep the mass lower? Just make it smaller?
That's to not block the sun from the solar panels.
Oh, good call. Okay, no, I don't have any questions.
Matt,
No questions.
Jenny?
Yeah, can we see the view from the alley side?
This,
No?
this is the closest.
Oh.
image.
Well, I thought there was a drawing of the new addition from the alley side. That would be from the west.
I think I need to pull it up.
Side. The bottom one's east. Top one is back, and along the left-hand side of that should be, the top one should be the alley.
Yes, give me 1 second and I
Most.
will pull it up.
I'm very familiar with this property, Jenny. What's your question? Maybe I can answer it.
Yeah, there was a piece of the limestone added facade that was left on the original house. Are they going to remove that? Right now, the little addition that was chunked on there looks like it's got narrow, long facade on the lower part of the house. And it looked like they left a piece of it on the main house.
Okay, give me 1 second and I will share some additional images. So bear with me, please. I am readjusting to Zoom.
So
right.
for the petitioners, the question is, how are you going to deal with the limestone on the existing residence?
Right.
So I think the renderings being pulled up. Yeah.
There it
which would
is.
be helpful.
Okay, so there's also a rendering of this side, but you can see the limestone there. Obviously not original to the house. Now that part's coming off. If you look to the left, it actually runs around the corner of the building. And I was just wondering if they're going to take that little piece off or leave it on there, because in the rendering, it looked like it was still on.
I don't know that we've talked about that exact corner, but you're correct that it would make more sense to have all of the facade match once this is done. So I don't see a problem in having that be the case.
Okay. I was just curious that it's a secondary elevation since it's an alley, so we don't consider it as heavily as the front. But I just thought we should at least see it. I know there's some glass block in the bathroom in there and stuff like that, which since it's an alley and that restroom, I understand you don't want visibility there, but we should probably see it.
Sure. Yeah, and we are very interested in having a consistent facade and using matching materials with the work that we do.
Thank you.
Okay,
No questions.
any questions from the public? Commissioner comments, John?
No comment.
Sam?
I'd just like to say that I think this addition is done fairly elegantly in terms of mass and form. The setback with the connector is good, matching roof slopes, matching materials, all of that. Even though I think it's in line with the guidelines, I'm a big hater of glass blocks. So even in a bathroom, you might want to consider like a fiberglass window because it's just much nicer from that point of view. But I'll support this one.
Chris?
I'm with Sam on this.
Matt?
No comment.
Jenny? Any comments, Jenny?
No comment.
Duncan?
No, I agree with Sam's general analysis. I think it's pretty tasteful and seems appropriate way to expand this house.
Great. Any comments from the public? Anybody want to make a motion?
I could just add on Sam's idea about the glass block that, you can get double hungs with obscure glass and they do the job, and then you can get ventilation out of them. And you may think about that, but I don't think we're going to steer it one way or another.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Go ahead, Dee.
Okay, Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Christopher Baum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
and Jeff Golden.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Okay, so let's move on to COA 21-30. That's 904 West 2nd Street.
Okay, so 904 West 2nd Street is located in the Greater Prospect Hill Local Historic District. The petitioner, David Ondrick, is not here, but has a representative. He talked to me earlier yesterday and then today. So this particular case is a request for the demolition and reconstruction of the limestone wall because it already has damage and it is in danger of collapsing. The proposal calls for the reuse of as much existing material as possible. So the staff has been using the local guidelines for each case. In this case, no products imitating grain or wood should be used. Then again, the proposal is calling for either the same stone or the same type of limestone to be used. So yeah, so far so good. The main comments, so it doesn't, we don't approve, or again, recommending for an approval with the following comments. Just to keep the design as close as possible. I know that the proposal said that they were going to use the same materials as often as possible, but yeah, our only concern is to just keep it as close to the design as possible. There will always be just some changes, mainly because the structure needs to be altered a little bit in order to allow for water drainage and to solidify the structure. But in general, yeah, that's kind of the idea and the main concern we had. So even in this principal picture, you can see in the corner that some of the pieces of, at least one piece has spalled almost completely. And here are some more images of the wall. So you can see that there is spalling and breaking in some corners, particularly close to the staircase. There are more images if you want to see them, and I would gladly show you, so just let me know.
So we have a representative for the property owner with us?
That's me. I'm Jacqueline. They are unfortunately out of town for a family emergency.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Jacqueline?
Nope, I know they have a desire to keep it as close to this design as possible, and they want to use limestone if any of it needs to be replaced, just to match it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner questions? John?
No questions.
Sam?
Two questions. One is the proposal calls for PVC piping, and I assume that's, you know, for weeps. The existing wall has, you know, the weeps or the drainage doesn't protrude from the front of the wall, and I think it would be good if they're using PVC to accomplish that it also didn't stick out, because it, you know, it's unattractive when you do that. There are some really nice, you know, just masonry holes that are acting as weeps too. So that's, I guess the question is, you probably don't have a detail of that, or do you know how they're going to address the drainage through the wall?
Give me 1 second. The only issue that I have is technical right now. So I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a second, and I will look up all of the information they gave us. So,
It wasn't in the packet particularly. I mean, it had the materials listed, but it didn't have the detail.
yeah, I believe I sent everything they gave me.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, they didn't actually give a plan. They gave a Google image, the Google Earth image that has the demarcation of the site and the area to be intervened, but they didn't give a detailed plan.
Okay, so I guess the only other question I have is, are they planning to do the stairs as well? And if so, what's their intention with the railing?
That's a great question. 1 second. I'm gonna check one more time with the packet to see if the text had any additional information. Did I close this? No, I did. Okay.
The text said they are going to reuse the steps, and I think there's 2 that are broken in half, the bottom one and the one above that they'll need to replace.
Yes. Sorry, I closed. Be patient with me, please. I closed the.
It says reset steps, but it doesn't address the railing. So
Yeah.
So we don't have an answer to that one.
This is Jacqueline. I don't know. I didn't think to ask about the railing, so I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Jacqueline.
thank you. I think that's all my questions.
Okay, Chris?
I take it it's impossible to rebuild. Is it falling too much to repair instead of completely rebuild?
I know that they've actually gotten multiple quotes and were surprised that, yes, the answer was it actually does need to be removed and redone as opposed to just repaired as it is now. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know that that's multiple answers they've gotten from different people. Yeah.
Fair enough.
The same answer from multiple people.
Matt?
No questions.
Lee, I'm sorry, I've been skipping you. Do you have any
Okay, I don't have a
questions?
question.
Okay. Jenny?
I do have a comment, but no questions.
Okay. Duncan?
Nope.
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments, John? John?
Hey, yes, no, I think it's a good project, and after looking at it, it definitely needs to be rebuilt completely. That's my comment.
Sam?
Let's see it finished.
Sam?
I'd concur with John. I think it's good that they're taking it down and putting it back up with proper drainage behind it, which was the cause of the problems in the first place. I totally support this project, but I'd like it with the caveats that they don't extend the PVC past the front face of the masonry, and that they come back to staff if they're going to replace the rail or change the rail in any way.
Great, Chris?
Yeah, this reminds me how important it is to review small details, even like walls, because this will be similar to what's here, and because it's being done well, it'll be here in another 50 years. And the character of the neighborhood will be continuous. So very pleased to endorse this. Thank you.
Matt?
I concur with everybody else. Grateful that the petitioner wants to preserve the character of the wall.
Lee?
Ditto.
Jenny?
Yeah, I was going to comment that it looked like to the left of the steps looks like it had been rebuilt previously, or at least the upper portions of it. And some smooth face stone was used in the rebuild, and the rest of the wall is split face except for the top and the inside of the stairwell. So they should pay attention to that and probably not go with more smooth face, because I don't think that's any of the smooth face was original to the wall, except for maybe the top stones.
Great, Duncan?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good observation. I noticed that as well. It's a little hard to tell whether that's a previous repair or they just turned the corner away from the public view and used the sawn style. All these stones have sawn sides that just split faces.
Yeah,
So
no, I mean,
it's a little bit hard to tell, but I think that attention to detail is worth noting. It's a good project.
Great. Sam, you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move to approve with the caveats that the PVC weeps don't extend past the front face of the masonry, that the petitioner comes back if they're going to change the rail or reinstall the rail, and that they make sure that the rusticated or split face is on the street facade. Does that cover it? I think it does.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Great. Dee?
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you, Jacqueline, for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to COA 21-31. That's 1016 West Kirkwood. This is a new house.
So this is a completely new proposal for 1016 West Kirkwood, where a structure had been approved for demolition earlier this year, as it was not contributing. This is in the near West Side Conservation District. The petitioner is the architect Don Gray. So this is a 1.5-story home with a gable form and an inset porch, and there is also an additional structure for the garage. So the staff comments that there's various comments, and most of them are pros. So the area immediately contiguous to the new construction does not offer adequate context to establish an appropriate new building height. The larger historic area context should be assessed. So basically what this is saying is, because this is a conservation district, there is a goal of, yes, new constructions can be built, but to look at both the very, very localized context and the slightly larger context as well. The porch height can have an impact on the height relationship between the building and should align. So the porch actually does align pretty well, and any building height that appears either diminutive or overscale in relationship to its context can be an issue. So I just added this bit of the near west side conservation district guidelines, just because it has a lot of examples of structures and the scale. So the comments here are a little bit more subtle, and I hope everybody can follow through. But we do recommend, and again, this is, all of you will do your thing, but our recommendation is the redesign of the following, if possible. The height is in keeping with a larger historic context, but it does feel slightly overscale with immediate context, and it doesn't have to do exactly with the height of the building, but the proportions of the front facade. So there are some recommendations for a separate porch roof, or to break up the front facade a little more. However, these are just recommendations. It's a take it or leave it. In other words, staff has no hard feelings. It's just indicating the slight oversizedness. And so here is a bit more on the mass scaling according to the handbook. So the floor plan of the whole site is in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. The front, back, and sides look well. The staff has no comment on that. Here is the building in its context, and here's where you can see how the proportions work. And here are the renderings. So the top, let me see, that I'm looking at, is it our left? Top left, the south elevation is the front facade. The north elevation is the back facade. And the rest are the side facades right now. This is the front, the main house, the main structure. And the garage also has a living space on top, a much smaller living space. And the north elevation is the entry of the car. And that is towards the alleyway, the back of the building, and the south elevation is towards the interior of the yard. Let me see, yeah, that's what I have for this. I believe there are more drawings and more images that we can pick up for you, and yeah.
Great. So is the petitioner here? Mr. Gray?
Yes. Oh,
Ms.
Hi.
Gray, sorry.
no problem. Yes, I'm here, and I believe Dell and Kelly Becks, that the owners of the property and our clients are here virtually as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Do
So
you have anything to add?
I would just say that it may not come across in the rendering as you see it, but the intent is for the inset porch to have a bit of a, call it kind of an eyebrow or extension that what looks like a beam over the inset porch would actually project, not significantly, maybe 12 inches or so. And I think the other thing that we were attempting to do to modulate the front elevation was to have that front bay, which would also project roughly 6 to 12 inches.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner questions? John?
So about the garage, 2 cars, is there going to be enough space back there to get it in and out from the alley?
Well, the garage is set back from the alley 10 feet, so it may be a multiple point turn. I wouldn't deny that, but I think it is doable.
Okay. And you're going to put an accessory dwelling in it as well?
It is not an accessory dwelling. It is an artist studio above the garage.
Okay. And will it have all the amenities, or will it just have a bare necessities?
Right now, it will have bare necessities. They are planning to have plumbing installed or rough-in plumbing installed for a future bathroom, but that's not planned at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Sam?
A couple of questions. Can you talk about the various, it looks like you've got about 4 different types of cladding on the street elevation. Could you walk us through those?
Sure. The main body of the house would be fiber cement board lap siding. And I believe we had originally in the application talked about alternating widths for the lap siding. The owners would prefer to have one single exposure. So, and that would be probably about 6 inches. So that's the dark blue area. Then the tan areas would be smooth fiber cement board siding with some type of composite trim that would also be smooth and painted. The white areas are a fiber cement board panel with more of a reveal type relief in the panels.
Like a nickel gap kind of?
Exactly, right.
And so the height dimension, is that sort of per planning, sort of the average building height, taking the average grade around the entire building, or is that just the height at that high grade?
That's the height at the high grade.
And then the other question I have is, so on the uphill side at that corner, it looks like you've got a piece of fiber cement trim that's almost hitting grade. Is there any clearance between the bottom of the trim and grade?
There will be, there's actually a small retaining wall at the property line to the west of this proposed house. And so it's a little tricky to render how that actually would be, but the sidewalk is sloping, but beyond it is depressed. So there wouldn't be fiber cement board in contact with the grade.
Excellent. I guess the other question I have, would you, so this 12-inch protrusion, it reads on the street elevation or the south elevation, but it doesn't read on the side elevations. Is it, how is it attached to the house? Does it have a roof on it? What is the purpose, or what is it? Is it just to bring the facade out and give you a little bit of relief? But is it a pergola?
It is mainly a facade treatment to give a bit of relief. Yes, so it would be, I think, in effect, cantilevered out from the face of the main body of the structure.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yes. Why did you choose non-traditional materials for a traditional front of a building? Seems the large panel above is not something that we would see on these era of buildings. And it seems also that the high belt line emphasizes the height of the building rather than lowers it. And then no porch line, significant porch line, also fails to break up that large facade. Could you talk about those material choices?
Right. So I think the intent was to use materials that are relevant to the historic area, being the lap siding, and then instead of doing some type of more Victorian fish scale treatment or something different for the gable trim, we were trying to take it in a more modern direction. Being that this isn't a historic structure, this is a new house in a historic area. So we were trying to use the materials in a way that was respectful of the historic area, but didn't mimic it necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Matt,
No questions.
Lee,
Questions from me.
questions? No? Okay. Jenny? Jenny, you got anything? Can't hear you if you do.
Okay, hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. It reads to me quite modern. I think it's probably the different elevations in the porch and the window over there, and the lack of a porch in front, and the materials peak. I don't know what the overhang is in the front. A large overhang might help a little bit. I don't know what the limestone foundation treatment's going to be. I mean, it could be those little squares like they're using on the modern houses, or it could be something more traditional. But it feels very modern to me. I mean, the windows themselves are the least modern thing, the actual glass pattern. And I don't expect it to look exactly like the other houses in there. But the multiple, I mean, like the railing is very unusual. I mean, I've never seen a railing like that in that neighborhood. Nor the material or the style in the peak, or, I mean, I don't know, there's something off about it for me.
Is there a question in this, Jenny?
Yeah, so I was wondering, the question was, could we get pictures of the actual materials? I mean, like from your book, your design book or something, so that I could actually guess what it's going to look like. Because it makes a huge difference, like I said, about what the pattern of the limestone that's going to be facaded onto the concrete block on the bottom, and what the rail is. That a piece of wood and a stringer or a piece of wire? I don't know. So I'm having a hard time reading the facade at all. Anyway, that's my question. Could we get better examples of what's on the house? But that's it. Thanks.
Yeah. Don, do you have any response to that?
Sure. We would be happy to provide images and, samples if you need that.
Great. Duncan?
Dawn, Gloria's staff made some actually pretty extensive comments about the relative massing vis-a-vis the context that it's in. And maybe Gloria, you put that massing image back on for us, but I just wonder if you would comment on it, because it's pretty hard to read that in the context that we've been shown. I haven't gone by this site to evaluate that myself, but I wonder if you just, as the designer, would comment on, is this house too big for its site? Is it overmassed, or I just don't quite, maybe Gloria could clarify some of her analysis as well, but I'm just not able to read if the house is too big for the neighbors. Yeah, there was another one.
I think it was the street elevation.
Yeah, this one.
There you go.
Is that an accurate reading? I mean, that's showing wall height higher. It's considerably more roof.
Right. I think.
Just give me your comments on it, Dawn.
Sure. So, we were trying to match the wall height. It definitely does have more roof presence on the front. These two neighboring structures are very diminutive, even within the neighborhood, I would say, although, they do represent probably more of that, the pattern of the gabled L. So this was more of it is a, front-facing gable design that may not be as prevalent, or in the neighborhood, but I think there are a few examples that we had included in our submittal. I think that the porch structure or the inset porch, we were trying to align that with the neighboring porches as well, or be close to the same scale. As far as I don't think it's too big for the site, but I'd love to hear more of your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the public? Commissioner comments, John?
I agree that I agree with Duncan on that this property or this design really looks like it's towering over the two houses on each side of it. I think it would be appropriate if they could scale it down a little bit and make it fit in better with that area.
Okay, Sam?
I would respectfully disagree. I think the architect has done a very laudable job of minimizing the scale of the building, given current building codes and how much they've changed from when all the other properties in the neighborhood and along this street were built. This is a fairly busy street. And I just like to go to a couple of places in the guidelines. One of them is about height. And, I walked the neighborhood with these folks when they were doing the guidelines, and we talked about the tensions between historic structures and building codes. And, they do have some structures in there which are pretty huge and overbuilt. But I think this one is trying really hard to hunker down and also meet building code. But boy, I've lost my page. I think it's like 29. 29 under building height, item 3, varied building heights may be appropriate depending on the context of a particular area or zone. And then under A, it says 30 feet and 2-story height maximum. So it's within that. And one of the questions I was asking is you have to have a certain amount of distance for crawl space, which they didn't used to have. So your building's automatically up like 1.5 feet higher than it is. And the guidelines also talk about this being houses being densely populated, right next to each other. So I think that, it's very respectful to the settlement pattern of the neighborhood, and I appreciate that. As far as the materials go, and one of the other things that the guidelines say is a new building it can use historically referential materials, but should be clearly of its time. And I believe this building really does that well. I mean, some of the stuff is a little bit funky, like the beam coming off of the front. I think that's wonky, but I think using the fiber cement materials in various configurations does make this building read as something that is not, it's not trying to be historicist. And I think that's actually appropriate. So in a sense, this is my favorite kind of infill in that it's trying hard to hew to the settlement pattern, but also saying this was built now. So I'm very happy with this one for the most part.
Matt?
I'm not a trained architect, although what Sam said specifically made a lot of sense. And I think he did correctly articulate that it meets the neighborhood design guidelines. And just speaking, maybe wearing my regular hat as a regular person, I would say I think most human beings walking by this site, once this is built, would feel like it fit in the neighborhood. And I think that's what we're shooting for. So I'm with Sam. Thanks.
Lee?
Great. I think it's very well thought out, very respectful of the neighborhood. Worked with within the guidelines and the height, and I think it's very very well done.
Great, thanks, Lee. Jenny?
Muted.
I probably don't have as much problems with the mass as I think the reason some of the other houses look smaller is there's the porch makes them look smaller because the body of the house is stepped back from the porch. But so this one is going to look like that. But like I said, to me, it feels a little modern. Not to everybody. I don't know. It's not a bad project, and I'm glad to see something going on the lot. It's attractive, but I'd like to see things like real wood mullions on the windows, and I'm not sure, like I said, what the railings and stuff are made out of. It's even the sheen of what you're using can matter. I mean, to some things of how they're going to appear. So probably a little more detail and I'd probably be happier, but it's really, it's not bad. I like it. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, when I asked Dawn about her comment, I was trying to get the architect's response to the staff comment. I wasn't by any means convinced the house was too big. I appreciate Sam's input on how difficult it can be to find compatibility based in today's requirements. And also as someone who just put a quite contemporary addition on a very, very old house, I find this way more than adequate and very interesting. I love those inset porches. They're all over town. And they're really a distinctive form in Bloomington. And I like without risking a trite comment about postmodernism, I like the contemporaneousness of it without overstepping either toward postmodernism or away from it. And I think, congratulations for that, Dawn, because I really know how hard that is. I've taught design studios with just these problems, and most students are quite inadequate. And I know you're way more experienced than that by now, but I find it quite nice. And regarding the massing thing, this is really tricky when things are close together as well. And when you have a distinct roof pitch next to buildings that aren't the same, all you get are differences. You don't get lack of sameness. So it's not a negative in my own mind as I go down the street. And it's extremely simple, which I think I like the restraint. I really do. I think that's very hard to do anywhere. And to see it in the context of an existing historic neighborhood is refreshing, frankly. So nice job. I like this project.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to agree with both Sam and Duncan that this project is appropriate. Our goal is not to make it fit in historically, but to make it work with the context. And I think this project does that really well.
I have a comment.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Sorry, I'll get back to you.
Oh, sure. I just didn't know if you forgot me.
I did. Sorry. I think that it fits in while showing that it's not a historic house. It is modern. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, Sam may call this historicity or whatever that word was, but there are traditional forms that have purpose, not to mimic old forms, but to, reduce scale. And this is like, to me, a big billboard. And the wide, just going from 4 to 6 on the lap siding changes the way the building looks scale-wise, and not using a frieze board on the large gable makes the gable look bigger, and not using the wider trim on the windows makes them look undersized. So I'm not saying we should do this because it'll look old, but because these are ways to make that front have more interest to the eye and reduce the scale. And that more of a suggestion of a porch, and even a little bit of a roof on a porch or more projection in a column would echo that line, the horizontal line that comes from the neighbor house. And the little horizontal porch lines, there's just, this house is trying to be horizontal and it really, I mean, it's bigger than that. So I think those details that are large will make the house seem larger than it is, rather than reducing the scale of the details that also makes the mass less looming. And I think the one that Duncan wanted to see, you could blend it better. You could even hip that front gable if you wanted to get some scale reduction and not lose mass. So there are ways to make it have more interest and less blankness and less appearance of a much larger looming building. So that's my defense of some of the traditional form and what it does to a house. We approved something on Restaurant Row, and we meant to have it have 4-inch lap, and instead that whole house went 6-inch, and it completely changed the way that house felt. So we not only have 6 here, but then we have 12. So I'm suggesting that considering how you skin that house without even affecting the size would make the front of it project a different image and reduce the visual scale.
Thanks, Chris, and apologies.
No problem.
Anybody have a motion?
Actually, can I do one follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, Dawn, is that siding, is that hopefully a smooth face?
Yes, it would be smooth face.
Excellent, thank you.
I move to approve COA 2131 following the architect's actual design.
I will second that.
Okay. Dee?
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
No.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you, Don.
Thank you all.
Okay, so let's move on to COA 21-32. That's 601 South Valentine Road in Elm Heights.
Okay. COA 2132 is a proposal for a deck addition of 98 square feet to the existing deck. It would also include an additional set of stairs. So the staff comments that it employs materials that are already being used in the neighborhood. It's proposed to be built in wood, matching the current deck, the existing deck. All new construction should be self-supporting. It is. Let me see, and it should be constructed behind the primary facade. So this is secondary. It's still facing a main roadway, but there is an existing deck already. So let me see. Yeah, the recommendations, we approve it for the following reasons. We recommend it for the following reasons. The addition is minimal and consists of an addition to an existing deck. It is distant from the second arterieway, so it's towards the back of the deck, not towards the front, and it doesn't impact the primary facade in any way. The wood is supposed to match the existing deck. So I don't have a beautiful image of the proposed addition. Here is what we were provided. So it has the location for the projected deck. And here are the plans for the proposal. The proposed section is in that yellow rectangle.
Great. Do we have the petitioner here? Anybody representing the petitioner? Anybody from Apex Home Services? So I believe with a COA, they have to be here, so we will have to put this on our next.
They were made aware of the meeting,
Okay.
so
So this will be, we need to take action.
I think there's a motion to continue to the next. It's
Okay.
not table, it's continue to the next.
So can I have such a motion from somebody to continue this?
Uh,
I think we had a first and a second there.
the second.
Dee, go ahead.
Lisa Ann Wise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes,
Motion carries to continue.
great. So let's move on. Doesn't look like we have much else going on. No resolutions, no demolition delay, any new business? No. Any commissioner comments?
Yeah.
Let's have Sam go first.
Oh, I just want to say how happy I am that Gloria is here and cranking stuff out. It's welcome and great job tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll second Sam again.
And
Anybody else?
yeah, I'll third that and then ante up with the packet was extremely well prepared with lots of supporting information that really made my job easy. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. And I know that's extra work but it certainly helped me a lot. So I want to thank Gloria for her diligence and attention to supporting details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, can we figure out a time to talk about the creamery?
I think there's a site visit.
We
We've
already
done
did.
that.
So we might as well have a little discussion around that right now.
So can I ask a question then about that?
Sure.
I was out there at the site visit and folks were telling me that it's actually not in the near West Side district, but I'm looking at this guy, the book won't come up, the City of Bloomington interim report, and it's actually specifically listed, both as being listed as being in it, and then on the map that this report shows of the district, it's clearly in it. So if somebody could, I'm just trying to learn, help me understand.
Well, you're learning right.
Huh?
You're learning correctly that we should look at the map.
So again, if you know this.
So if that's the case, then a COA is required.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And a COA has a couple of other implications or possibilities, gives us some room to talk about economic aspects of it, things like that. I'm not jumping to any conclusions, but a COA does have slightly different things from a demolition. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, okay, great. So that changes things a little bit. And so
I'm not
we're
sure.
gonna have Gloria, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure Matt's correct. It's in the National Register District that includes the West Side District, but the West Side, the recent West Side designation, I don't believe includes the creamery. I don't think it crosses Roger. I don't think it crosses Roger.
Staff can take that as an action and verify, what district it is in or it isn't in, because it does change the HPC approach to what action that you all can take concerning with anything they propose doing to it.
Anyway, I just like to make a comment on, based on my limited, I walk by there all the time, but I really looked at the building. And the petitioner really made a big deal about the condition of that rear addition. it's in fine shape. It had been flooded. There was some trim removed, but the inside of the building was, as much as we could see, there were still people working in there, and it seemed fine. And it really is, for me, removal of that addition, which is an addition from many years ago, would change that whole building. So I think that it's appropriate that we individually designate this building locally, or that we take some other action, because their plans are going to change that building so much that it's going to, it's going to take away the historic nature of that, of the way that it sits now.
And how does it still spell Johnson if you take 15 feet off the chimney?
That's the other thing. It is, you look at that chimney and there's definitely an issue, but I think, Duncan, you talked about this a couple of times, that there are ways to stabilize that structure.
Well, I haven't studied the recent, I did relook at that structural report. It's not encouraging. They have rebanded that chimney in the last 10 years to try to assist in strengthening it. These things are really tricky, and I'm not an engineer myself, so I'm not really ready to sort of pass judgment on that. But it may be possible to do what our friends were doing with their front wall, which is dismantle it and re-erect it. That's not being proposed, clearly. It is true, in my experience, that these chimneys have a lifespan. They're very vulnerable to weather. We completely repointed the inside and skinned the inside with new concrete mortar and repointed all the worst places when I was working on it. And that was 93, 94, 95. And we put bands on it. It's since had more bands put on it. It is leaning. You can see, just stand away from it and look at it. And, if it's a public hazard and that's the determination, then we're talking about something quite different than an aesthetic evaluation. So I think that's a serious concern. On the other hand, if they came in here and said, we have to take the smokestack down, I'd be heartbroken, but I'd be much more willing to acknowledge the necessity to do that than to take away the boiler room. You could raise a ghost tower. There are all kinds of ways to commemorate the tower without actually having the tower there. But destroying a third of the building just because they are greedy, to be honest, I said it, you heard it. That's why I'm your advisor. I don't buy it. This is a National Register building. It's very, very significant in this community. It's been a major investment put in it in the last 25 years to save it. And here they come, now that we've made the place a nice place to live, let's come make some more rent. And I don't buy it, any of it. So punish me.
I will say from a staff perspective that legal is reviewing the state's unsafe building statute that does allow for any part of a building structure you could petition a court to deem it unsafe, and that does give the city some options when it comes to using unsafe building fund money to repair, placing it in even a receivership if we wanted to. So that's being reviewed. I'm not in legal, so I can't speak for Daniel Dixon or anybody who may be a part of that, but because it is leaning, and I know that bricks are falling from what I understand. So there could be an unsafe public safety way to go about addressing the issues as well, which, gives us a few more options.
Yeah, regarding the boiler room, I think he said that was unsafe or damaged in some way. And that we completely reconstructed that that part, we put a whole new roof in it, put all new steel joists in it, reinforcement and so on. That's only a 25-year-old thing. I'd be very surprised if there were any structural issues with that part.
I think they were mainly concerned with that drainage, that limestone arch ceiling drainage culvert that goes beneath it.
Yeah.
But even that you can mitigate.
Yeah. And it's always been true that the drainage is low. If the parking lot floods, it runs into the rear lobby, which is below the parking lot grade. That historically has been the way that building has operated. They're not the first people to explore to see the flood, you know, and there is a solution for it, but no, the people I worked for didn't want to spend the money to redrain the whole site. And the box culvert, it was questionable whether the box culvert could actually carry the drainage without a major rebuild. So those are all mitigations that are open to the possibility that don't include tearing anything down. So, you know, I felt, I'll say this a little differently and maybe not quite so crudely. I felt like the owner was trying to pull the wool over our eyes about the condition of that building, frankly. And
Great.
I was going to add in that I delved very much into the National Register form and nomination and everything that's been said and what Duncan has pointed out about the importance of all those pieces, the running along the side there is absolutely true, absolutely crucial to the building and not just a sort of secondary part, no matter how much the petitioner may seem to feel that it you know, doesn't contribute to the historic nature of the building. All I would add, with all due respect for Duncan's passion on this matter, is that you know, attributing a statement like greedy to the petitioner, we don't know what the petitioner is thinking, and in that regard, and that our standards of professional conduct do say that we're supposed to treat all citizens with respect. And so my comment would be maybe another way to phrase that might be with a more of an interest in the finances than in the historic character, rather than using a very strong word like greedy. That would be my suggestion for the future.
meaning taken.
Anybody else?
Jenny?
Yep.
Jenny, you got something?
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that we, if they're only asking for the top 15 feet, and if that would make it safe, I wouldn't go farther and say, well, if the whole stack needs to be taken down in our comments. I would rather not this whole stack be taken down if it can at all be stabilized. If it's just the top 10 feet, 15 feet, and it sounds like they've had somebody up there. I don't know if it was before they bought the building and always knew it was like that, or after they bought the building. I know they haven't owned it very long. So, you know, I would like to think about that. And the more I think about the Johnson Creamery the building, the less I like the idea of them tearing off the boiler room and stuff. It's such an old part of the building. It is, if you look at the guidelines of the national guidelines for us to actually set up historic districts, they specifically mention, you know, if an addition has been at a certain age onto a building, it becomes part of the story of the building. So when they come back, I would like a little more interest in that part. And I have no objection for them building. I realize they're profit driven or they wouldn't be there. But I'd like a little more consideration of the historicity. And I was wondering what we would need to do to designate it locally. I thought it was. I didn't realize it was just on the National Register.
Well, we would have to start that process. And I'm sure that, I believe that the smokestack is going to come to us separately as a demolition delay, because they're still working on what the building is going to be. So this is just something that we need to keep in front of us. They can't do anything before coming in front of us. So, and I think probably, you know, moving forward with an individual designation is going to happen in the future. Anybody else?
Yes, welcome back, Lee.
Yes, great to have you back, Lee.
You know,
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be back. I'm glad you took me back.
Any other comments tonight? Any announcements? We are adjourned. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you, Jeff.